Shavua Tov Mevarach. Rabbi Kovacs here in Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 3 of Bava Batra, Mishnah 3 and 4. Yesterday we started this chapter, hazaka batim, about a hazaka, a proof of ownership based on using a property for 3 years. And we mentioned this does not give someone the right to trespass and squat and then claim ownership. It's not adverse possession. Now Mishnah Gimel is going to explain more of that issue. Kol hazaka she'eni matana, any hazaka, any being on the land, using the land that does not have with it a ta'ana, a claim, or a taina in yeshivish, eina hazaka. It's not a valid hazaka. Ketzad, what are we talking about? Amar lo, they told the guy who's using this field, Mata say b'toch sheli, what are you doing on my field? Vehu amar lo, and the squatter replies, Shalo amar li adam davar me'olam. No one said anything to me. No one said I'm on the wrong field. I didn't know. Eina hazaka. This is not a hazaka. He cannot establish any rights to the land by saying, well, I didn't know it was yours. Shemacharti li, but what if he says, you sold this to me? And as we mentioned yesterday, he's saying, you sold this to me over 3 years ago, and I can't find the deed, the paperwork. Shenatata li b'matana, you gave this to me as a gift. Or avicha mochrali, your father sold it to me when your father owned it. Or avicha natnali b'matana, your father gave it to me as a gift. Harezu hazaka. This is a valid hazaka if he's been there for the appropriate time, and he has a valid reason for being there. I think they call it in modern legal parlance, color of title. He can make a colorable claim, a believable claim that he deserves to be there. And the Mishnah adds, Haba mishum Yerusha, someone's coming because he inherited this property, Eino tzarich ta'ana. He doesn't need to state a claim. What's going on is his father or his uncle, who's giving him something as a Yerusha, as an inheritance, was known to have used this property, lived in this property. So now the Yoresh, the heir, is coming and he says, yeah, I've been here for 3 years because I inherited it from my uncle. That's all he needs. Umnin is craftsmen. Now, this could mean one of two things. This could mean they're contractors who are doing something on the land, fixing a house, rebuilding a house, or it could be an uman, a craftsman who's repairing like a watch or something like this, and he actually has an item, a movable item in his possession. As we're about to find out at the end of the sentence, he has no hazaka. Just because a craftsman has been fixing your watch for 3 years does not mean he can claim to own your watch. Then it continues, a shutfin, partners. If there's 2 partners in one field and they're taking turns, even if one takes turns for 3 years, that doesn't make it his field. He's only a partner in that field. Ha'arisin, sharecroppers. Sometimes sharecroppers would be on the land for a long period of time. It was generational. They could be there for decades. That doesn't mean they own the land. They went down into that land as sharecroppers, so we assume that's why they're there, and that's why the actual owner of the land didn't say anything. A potropos is an administrator, typically, or a guardian for minors. They would be, taking care of property on behalf of children. Ein lahem chazaka. They have no way to establish a chazaka on this land. They have other reasons for being on this land, or perhaps for holding on to this item. If it's umnin, you're dealing with metaltalin. On the same theme, the Mishnah adds, Ein la'ish chazaka b'nichsei ishto. A husband cannot make a chazaka in the property of his wife. When they get married, if the wife owns a vineyard, that vineyard is now property of the husband to use it, to plant it and harvest it and get fruits, get profits, but the title still belongs to his wife. So just because he's using it for 3 years or 10 years does not make it his. It always belongs to his wife. And not vice versa. If a wife is going down to the husband's vineyard and picking fruits every day for 3 years, well, that doesn't mean it's hers. It's his vineyard, and she has, of course, rights to be supported from the property of her husband. V'lo la'av b'nichsei ben, and not a father on the property of his son. V'lo leben b'nichsei av, and not a son in the property of the father. They support each other. They allow each other to pick each other's fruits. So it's not a sign of adverse possession. B'mei dvarim morim b'machzik. So what are we talking about so far in this chapter? When somebody is mahazik, somebody is relying on a hazaka of using this land for 3 years or 3 seasons, as we saw perhaps yesterday, to establish his ownership because he's lost the deed. Aval, but there's a different kind of chazaka, something else we call hazaka, a kinyan chazaka. Benoten matana, Reuven's giving a gift to Shimon, Ve'achin shachalku, and brothers who inherited an estate, they're dividing up a property. A machzik b'nechsei ager, a convert who passed away with no children, and his Jewish neighbor wants to take possession of the land because there's no heir. So in this case, there's something called a kinyan hazaka. Now, hazaka in this sense is being used as a sign of ownership. So the Mishnah says, what is this? Nal, he locks the door or locks the fence. Gadar, he builds a fence. Paritz, or he breaks the fence. Kolshu, even a little bit. Harezu hazaka. That's the hazaka as in kinyan hazaka, as in these parties agreed to give this property or sell this property, and the recipient is going down into the fence, going down and locking the fence or locking the front door, or doing something to show he's the owner on the property. So this hazaka doesn't mean 3 years or 3 seasons of ownership to establish that he deserves to be there, but he's doing a hazaka, a change on the property to show he's the owner, effective immediately. So again, that's kinyan hazaka, a sign of ownership over a property, effective immediately, versus what we've been talking about up until now, which is a raya based on hazaka, of being there for 3 years, 3 seasons, plus a claim that you deserve to be there. Let's go on to Mishnah Dalet. So what about the testimony to establish the hazaka, the 3 years of hazaka? Hayu shnayim me'idim, if there's 2 people testifying about him, she'achla shaloshanim, he ate from this field, he was using it for 3 years, nimtzu zomamin, these witnesses are proven to be zomamin. Now, we're going to talk all about edim zomamin after Bava Batra, after Sanhedrin. The next Masechta is Makot, the first parak of Makot. We'll talk about Edim Zomamim. These are false witnesses, but it's not just witnesses that are contradicted. It's witnesses where other witnesses say you could not possibly have seen that. You were somewhere else. We saw you somewhere else at the time that you're saying the thing took place that you're testifying about. So the din with Edim Zomamim, we'll learn, is they pay the damage that they intended to do to the person they're testifying against. So in this case, by the chazaka, mishalmin lo et hakol. These 2 witnesses who said that Ruvain was on Shimon's land for 3 years and it belongs now to Ruvain, they need to pay Shimon because they tried to take his land away. Shnayim b'rishona, if there are 2 witnesses about the first year or season, Shnayim b'shniya, 2 witnesses about the second year, Shnayim b'shlishit, and 2 other witnesses about the third year, so you have 3 sets of witnesses, and they're all proven now to be zomamin, misholshin b'nehem. They divide in thirds. Really, each person pays 1/6 of the value of the property that they were trying to take away through their false testimony. Finally, the Mishnah brings a variant of this case, Shlosha Achim. What if we have 3 brothers? We're going to learn about in Sanhedrin that brothers, close relatives, are not eligible to testify together. We always need at least 2 witnesses. But if they're 2 brothers, then they can't come forward as valid witnesses in court. What if we have 3 brothers? The echad mitzaref imachem, and there's 1 other guy along with each brother on each of the separate 3 years. Hare elu shalosh eduyo. This can count as 3 separate testimonies. So we have brothers, Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, and Ruvain saw year 1, Levi saw year 2, Shimon saw year 2, Levi saw year 3, and they join with Bob, Brad, and Bill to testify about each year. So each brother is testifying about a separate year. No 2 brothers on the same year. This counts as 3 separate testimonies. So if they're true witnesses, this would establish a hazaka for the guy using the field for 3 years. Behen edut achat lehazama. And this is 1 big testimony in terms of hazama, in terms of, again, edim zomamin. If they're proven that they could not have possibly seen this, then they would all have to pay. That only takes place if every set of witnesses is proven to be edim zomamin, then they would all have to pay. But for instance, if the middle year, the guys in the middle, they're not proven edim zomamin, well, then we haven't established enough testimony to take the field away from the previous owner, so no one would pay anything, and the field would go back to the original owner. And again, we're going to learn more about this topic in Sanhedrin and Makot coming up soon. Yashar kochachem, Shavua tov.